Thanks so much. So yeah, just before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. And particularly this week when we know a lot of people across Australia are really hurting. So today I'm going to talk about engagement with digital tools, particularly through meaningful co-design. So I'm a senior research fellow at the Matilda Centre for Research in Mental Health and Substance Use, and I'm program lead for digital interventions and engagement. And as Sally alluded to, one of the things that I really love looking at is trying to solve this engagement issue, as I like to think about. And that issue is that even commercially produced digital health products and digital health apps are often only used sort of a couple of times. But yet we know there's such great potential for digital approaches to reach so many more people than could ever possibly be reached by, say, face-to-face services, and to fill those gaps, to fill waiting times, to be the first port of call for people with any sort of problem, be it a gambling problem, a mental health problem, substance use health problem, those people who aren't quite maybe ready to seek treatment from a face-to-face person. A digital health approach can sometimes be a really effective way to provide that first instance of help. But we need to figure out how we can get over this issue that a lot of digital health approaches are only engaged with a couple of times. And so I'm starting off with, I suppose, what I think is the first step in solving this, and like Sally was talking about, and that is that whatever we're producing, a digital tool, is that it's informed by talking to the people who are going to end up using it, co-design. If you want to talk with me about some of the other approaches for enhancing engagement, I can talk about it for literally days, so come and talk to me later. But I thought, and I'll see if this video works, to start off with, I just thought I'd give a little intro to the Matilda Centre. And rather than me talk about it to you now, I've got a little video, which is actually me talking about the Matilda Centre 4 years ago when we first launched. So keep in mind some of the stats of, obviously a lot of the stats on here are much bigger now. But let's see if this video works. Doesn't appear. Okay, video did not work. That is fine. But that's right. So the Matilda Centre, it's a flagship research centre at the University of Sydney, and our work, as the name suggests, focuses on co-occurring, so mental health and substance use disorders, because we know that these issues do not occur in isolation. And a lot of the work that Matilda Centre does focuses on young people, because we have a real focus on not just dealing with the pointy end of things when, there are problems, occurring already, similar to what Sally's been talking about, but really also focusing on understanding the epidemiology of these issues, and a huge focus on prevention as well. So a lot of the work that Matilda Centre does is, school-based or working with young people, looking at how we can best try to prevent mental health problems from being, developing and having a lifelong impact on people, and how we can help prevent, both the uptake of tobacco, alcohol, and other substance use, but also the development of ongoing problems. So we've got huge numbers of school-based trials. We go into schools. A lot of our work is in the digital space, again, recognizing that a lot of young people's lives are conducted online, and this is a really ideal way to engage with young people as well. But you can, if you want to hear more about Matilda Centre and view this beautiful video, which I'm very disappointed to say, it's available on the Matilda Centre website, so you can just have a bit of a Google as well. But to jump into co-design, so what do I mean by co-design? Goes by a lot of different names. Sometimes it's called generative design, co-creation, co-production, participatory design, cooperative design. And, they each have their own little definitions. But overall, I think sort of as co-design is basically a process that involves end users of products or services in their development at its most simple. But why? Why would you do co-design? Because, of course, it's extra effort. You could just design a treatment program yourself, But the reasons why you might, what I think, and at Matilda Centre, we think it's incredibly important to go to the effort to undertake a really meaningful co-design process, is that first up, we know this is through research as well, that immediate benefits of co-design include that, you get better ideas, basically, with, often a higher degree of originality, not always just reinventing the wheel and the same old, same old. And most importantly, those ideas have much higher user value. They're far more relevant, seem to be far more relevant to the people you're trying to engage. Of course, the immediate benefits also include that you generate improved knowledge of the customer or the user's needs. The great thing as well is by going through this sort of co-design process, you get immediate validation of ideas or concepts. So you're not waiting until, the end of a trial to find out that your idea for the product or the idea for the service was no good, wasn't relevant to the end user at all. Research has shown over and over again that higher quality products and services are produced when you engage in co-design. And because of all of these different factors, there's also often lower development costs and reduced development time overall. And of course, longer term benefits include, users often report high degrees of satisfaction when engaging with these products and services. You often get better loyalty from users. And again, because I know the youth space and among adolescents, we've seen that products that have employed a co-design process end up having better engagement as well. Another key reason to engage in a co-design process is respect, I think. So respect of the value and the expertise that people with a lived experience of whatever problem you may be investigating, a lived experience of mental health problems, of substance use, of gambling issues, a recognition that without a lived experience of these problems, we can never fully understand exactly what's going on in someone's mind. Of course, someone with a lived experience may not always have insight into exactly what's going to work best, but I think we can't assume that as experts and as academics that we can know everything and know always what's going to work. And I particularly like this quote, "Nothing about us without us," which I first heard from Leonie Mans, who was a person with a lived experience and an extremely passionate and strong advocate for involving people with a lived experience of mental health in research with the goal of improving outcomes for people with mental health problems. So here are a few ideas on how you might meaningfully involve young people. I'm giving young people as the example in co-design, but I think some of these ideas probably could translate well to other groups of people. But at the Matilda Centre, of course, we do a lot of our work with young people. And I just wanted to point out as well the word meaningfully there, because I think, again, that's going to always be the key of a successful co-design process, is the meaningful involvement. It's not enough for, to talk to one lived experience person and just have a tokenistic, sort of representation there. So at the Matilda Centre, we have expert advisory boards. This is one of the ways which we facilitate co-design of our research and our digital health products. So through the NHMRC Centre for Research Excellence in the Prevention of Mental Health and Substance Use, or PREMIS, we have a youth advisory board. And so that youth advisory board consists of culturally, linguistically, and gender diverse group of about 10 members, usually 8 to 12 members, aged 16 to 25. We've got people from rural and regional communities as well as metropolitan communities in Australia. And those young people bring expertise, then the experience of being a young person in today's society, as well as an interest in mental health and substance use, and experience of lived experience to our research. And so the way we run the YAB is there's monthly meetings with the youth advisory board, and they provide input into the governance and research priorities of the Matilda Centre, as well as contributing to specific youth focused research projects. So, for example, I can take a project and present it to the Youth Advisory Board and get feedback. And that could be anywhere from the coming up with the initial idea of the identification of the problem, and hopefully all the way through to co-designing the actual tool, providing feedback on what an actual digital health tool may look like. And so the Youth Advisory Board have actually, pulled together a number of different resources on how you can include young people in research, and came up with these 10 principles around engaging young people in research, and they're available on the Matilda Centre website. And as I said, these came directly from the young people themselves. So setting up things like expert advisory boards, that's one way, I think, to facilitate meaningful co-design and meaningful participation from people with the lived experience or with your potential end users. Another way is to employ them. So this is something that I've done recently. I was lucky enough to get some funding, and I employed a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old to work with me as young person research assistants. And I found it a really successful approach for design, co-designing tools for young people. So those young people research assistants were able to draw on their recent and ongoing experiences of being an adolescent, and sort of their understanding of what are the contemporary, social norms for adolescents. And they were able to draw on their own experiences to, successfully facilitate online workshops and to help write content for me that was going to be likely to be more interesting and engaging to young people. And I found the only challenge was HR, who didn't quite understand that a 17-year-old may not have all of the forms of identification that they need. So that was a really successful approach for facilitating co-design for me. Another approach that I've used to facilitate sort of meaningful involvement was sort of doing more like online consultations, recognizing that a lot of young people don't want to come in face-to-face to, participate in these things. It allows people to participate, who are, geographically, isolated and spread out as well. And so, again, this is just an example. We use the online tool Padlet to facilitate people to sort of provide input. So here we had a bunch of text messages that the young person research assistants had written, and we got the participants in this online consultation, who are all adolescents, to just thumbs up and thumbs down, these different examples of these text messages we were looking at. And they could also provide comments as well as what they liked and they didn't like. And then we could also use the tool to actually, get them to help generate the content for us. And this is some of there's some, some funny stuff in there, but there was also some really great ideas that came out of this process as well. Recognizing that end users are sometimes, are the experts sometimes in, their own, what's going to engage them as well. So, and the other thing with particularly online consultations and workshops, and when you're engaging groups of end users, is considering the idea of peer facilitation. When I employed the young person research assistant who was 17 and I realized that I could be their mother, I realized I was no longer young enough to be a peer facilitator and engaging with young people. And I think that goes with lots of different groups. I think when we remove sometimes the barrier of authority and, the person facilitating a discussion is one of them, I think sometimes it does mean that we can get better discussions and more natural discussions happening. And certainly this was the case when we ran this online consultation with adolescents. The young person's RAs were facilitating the workshop, and it was so evident they were able to engage and relate to the participants much better than I could have. I would have absolutely struggled this situation, because we had this situation, it was a Zoom call. Not a single young person turned on their camera or used the microphone the entire 2 hours. And I was sitting there in the background taking notes, freaking out. But the young persons, the 17-year-old and 20-year-old who were facilitating the conversation, didn't care. It was fine, because they were used to this way of communicating. And so we still, because we had these interactive online activities, we had a lot of engagement with those activities, lots of people like writing comments, doing the thumbs up. We had the young persons asking questions of the group, and everyone was providing their comments in the chat function. And so we still generated really, really valuable insights. It just wasn't in the way that I thought we were going to generate those insights. And so I think that was this really clear example of the benefits of peer facilitation in these sort of situations. And it made me learn, for young people in particular, perhaps bringing people together in the same time and place on Zoom was completely unnecessary. An asynchronous, model of engaging people where we're asking these questions and they can just provide their information via chats or comments may well have worked just as better and may have facilitated more people to participate. So thinking about what is going to work best for the people you want to engage is really important. Remember, how do your end users want to communicate? Because it may not be the same way you are used to communicating. And that's my examples. That's my little quick, spurt into some ideas around co-design. And hopefully I've sold to you why it is really important to always engage with the end user when trying to come up with solutions to any sort of problem. Thanks very much. I've just told you everything you need to know about co-design, clearly.
Maybe my question is, we're obviously researchers. For people who are working in policy areas or other settings, how can they go about speaking with their community they want to target?
Well, again, my whole working life being in research, I always come from that lens, but I actually think it's in a lot of the same ways. I think there's nothing to stop people who are, wanting to understand more about their customers or consumers doing some of the same things that, I outlined there, like establishing expert advisory boards like we do, or running sort of, consultations, or even considering employing people. I think, you can do the same sort of things. You just maybe collecting the data or using the information slightly differently to what I would be doing to publish a research paper. So I think, the methods are translatable.
Questions? Had a fairly long morning. I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Thornton. And thank you for everyone here in person and everyone watching online, either, live, or these videos will be available afterwards. We're going to split them up so you can pick and choose who you want to revise and share them with anyone who has missed this. We'll make the links available so you can share the videos online, and we're happy to make the slides available as well. So thank you all very much. We do have this room. We've got plenty of morning tea left if you want to stick around, for a little bit and have a chat. Part of the reason we wanted to host this event for GambleAware Week is to bring people together who all are interested in these topics of safer gambling and looking at understanding how we can reduce harm. So take advantage of the other people who are here and our team members who are here. We've got Dr. Delishi Chandrakudra at the moment and TJ Santos who are working on these projects as well. Dr. Louise Thornton and obviously Fadi. And here is Dr. Christopher Hunt. Many of you will know the senior clinical supervising psychologist for the GTRC. There's plenty of expertise, and then you, of course, have your own expertise as well. So feel free to stick around or swap contact details. And thank you again for coming along.